Just another quick message to the education advocates in Hartford. I had a chance just last week to head out to Denver for the Lumina Foundation's huge convening of all the different cities that have won Lumina grants over the last 6 years to do degree completion coalition work. Here at Achieve Hartford, we've been blessed to receive some Lumina Foundation dollars. It's what led to the launch of the All-In Coalition, and I thought I'd bring back a couple learnings from you. Let me just paint the picture. I think they held it in Denver because Denver has an incredibly high-functioning network called the Denver Education Attainment Network. You've got the Chamber of Commerce, large corporate leaders, philanthropic leaders, school district, multiple university presidents, all together, one agenda, and really a sight to behold. But a first takeaway that I'd like to bring to you, while I just mentioned how Denver is doing their work, I think one takeaway I want to bring to you all is that, really this work, when we think about institutional leadership needed to get it done, it can look a lot of different ways. For some cities, it might look like the mayor really driving change, bringing the philanthropic sector and the public sector together to address low graduation rates or low college enrollment rates. It could be a foundation president, bringing some resources and bringing the district leadership and industry leadership together to try to address pathways that are missing towards careers. It could look like the local Chamber of Commerce, really bringing together higher ed partners to say, how do we address talent gaps? Or it could look like what we have in Hartford, where you've got a lot of the nonprofit and higher ed partners looking at the subpopulation of Hartford public school kids and saying, we have got to do better in helping these kids finish degree programs, whether it's associate's degree, four-year degrees, or any kind of degrees out there, or industry recognized credentials. I think a major point for us is that it doesn't really matter what it looks like. What matters is that we get it going and that we identify the leaders that are willing to really do the work. Second point I want to make is, there's this sense that you've got to have everything perfectly set up to get the really big impact. And I think we forget sometimes that the best way to get impact is through action. And if there is a bias towards action and a commitment to implement, evaluate, communicate, iterate, then we can really get to impact much sooner than making sure that we have everything set up perfectly. And I think in Hartford that's a great message, as there's a lot of meeting fatigue, a lot of folks who say we've been planning and planning, how do we just get things going? Definitely a value for us here at Achieve Hartford, and a great takeaway for us to bring back from Denver. And lastly, I thought there was a really interesting point made. I know Richmond, Virginia really showcased some of their learnings around data and data sharing, which is such a huge piece of the work here in Hartford, but in every city. And a great point that was made was that you want to get to data-driven decision making, but you probably want to start out with values-driven conversations. How do you identify the Institute of Higher Education that really shares your values and says, you know what, come on in, let's just take a look at our data. Doesn't have to be perfect, we don't have to have data sharing agreements, let's just come and take a look. We've got some issues, but let's look at what the data says. And if there's programs that have been created for certain populations to get all the way through, and yet you're finding out that a population or a certain demographic of student is just never completing a program, that's a tough conversation to have. But it's in these tough conversations where values are what matters in these conversations, where we can lead to some great discoveries and some ways to get really put some really great tactics in place and maybe get results. And so those are just 3 quick takeaways from the Denver trip. A lot more to come on that for folks who are part of the All-In Coalition. We'll get much deeper on all those issues. But lastly, I want to just mention that when we think about where this coalition, the All-In Coalition, is going, sky's the limit for what it is we decide to take on. We know there'll be a couple new action teams in the coming school year, but when we think about next year, we should really start having some big conversations. What are we trying to do? We have incredible institutions of higher education. We've got the mayor here. We've got, with the financial situation stabilized in Hartford, we've got superintendent. We've got a new CEO of our Chamber of Commerce and Metro Hartford Alliance. We've got Jay Williams, relatively new foundation president. What are we trying to do that's big? And I'll leave you with this one idea. Denver just recently launched a new project just got some additional funding from Lumina for it, called the Denver Direct Pathways, right? And they looked at the 4 largest institutions of higher education, and they looked at their 4 industry pathways that were really in need of attention. It was advanced manufacturing, business, health, and IT. And they said, how do we commit from the school district up through these 4 institutions with industry partners in these 4 areas to really build out these intense direct pathways to careers for kids. I'll leave you with a graphic. Hope you enjoy it, and really looking forward to thinking about next year, all in coalition with you soon.